Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Insurgent. I can't think of any other genre in the current movie climate that has so many movies that are so alike as the YA sci-fi dystopian future adaptation genre has been, and the Divergent films are almost the greatest example of that. They're really all kind of just big Hunger Games ripoffs, more so than even the films that came after Twilight to cash in on that. In Divergent, it feels so much like Hunger Games, where the character of Triss feels very much like Katniss. The character of Four feels just like whoever Liam Hemsworth plays, and it's shocking how close it is. It's almost the greatest example of how all these films are like the Hunger Games films, and really the greatest example of being the kind of second-class version of the Hunger Games. It really doesn't break out from that. There's nothing made in this film that feels like it's anything more than that, or even in its wildest dreams trying to be anything more than that. It just shows you all the problems with that genre, even more so than even the Hunger Games or Maze Runner could ever show you. When you come up with a sequel, there's kind of two ways to do it. One way is to remake the movie again, but with a bigger budget, which is certainly what Hunger Games Catching Fire did. I know it's based on a book, but it feels very much in that vein of sequels. Or you can do an idea where, how do we get all these elements back together again? Let's come up with like a really thin idea for a plot for them all to get back together all over again. And that's what Insurgent really does. There's this box they found in Triss's parents' house, and the only way they can open it is if a Divergent does the Sims for all the various factions they have, and if you do that, then the box will open and there's a message from the elders which will hopefully help them find a way to reunite the factions. So Kate Winslet's character has to find Triss because she knows she is a very strong Divergent, and she's trying to get any diversions she can, but they keep dying, and she feels that Triss will probably be the best one at it and then be able to reunite the factions. Kate Winslet and the future police are after them, and they're trying to avoid them and learn about Four's mom, played by Naomi Watts, and how the group that are unfactioned are going to rise up with an army while Kate Winslet's after Triss to hopefully capture her and let her side be able to open the box. The problem with these Divergent movies is they don't have much different to offer you. I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of the YA things, because there's always a character who's really just Katniss, you know, whether it's the Maze Runner, whether it's this. There's always that character who's really different, who's gonna blow this society's minds, man, with all their different crazy ideas and shit. They put a lot of emphasis on Triss. They kind of do it in almost like a ridiculous degree, whereas Hunger Games tried to really understand it a little bit more, make her more of a figurehead, a reluctant figurehead. Triss is almost like super powered and different. Well, of course she's the Divergent one because she has so many personalities and she's so different. The thing with this whole idea of having this one person who's so different in this really closed in, almost like fascist idea of a society, is it's just the idea of being like an incredibly special one, like the Lego movie. You're the special, like the Matrix, like all those things. It's bizarre that the lead character in this is special and unique and breaking out of the norm, but the Divergent series in itself is kind of like the definition of following the norm. It's following the thing that's really popular. Now I kind of understand, because Hunger Games is a really popular franchise. It's always #1 or #2 highest grossing movie of the year, so it's like completely understandable that this would happen. Hollywood has a long history of doing this kind of shit. The problem with the Divergent series is that it's so close to it can't be anything other than a retread. I'm drinking Mr. Pibb instead of drinking Dr. Pepper. It's like the lesser than, and almost the direction feels that way. This is directed by Robert Schwenke, I think, who also did R.I.P.D. When they choose directors for these films, it always feels like they're like, okay, who can we get who is kind of in director jail and will totally do this kind of thing? And this guy, I guess, was it, because like he clearly had no career after R.I.P.D. He did do Red. I've seen him do better action sequences than what he did in here. This film's supposed to have like wall-to-wall action. It's supposed to move a lot better. Thankfully, like 20 minutes shorter than the last film. Even though it moves a lot better, it moves in a really stupid way where they keep moving from thing to thing, almost like they're afraid the audience would get bored, because the last film did feel very boring. They try to kind of up the action elements. The whole thing where she's in the Sims tries to be a lot more surreal. They put a lot more money in the Sim sequences. Before it was like, oh look, there's a wolf in a room. That's really surreal. It wasn't that imaginative. That was like a major complaint I had with those Sim things, because it was like, well, if you can do anything you want, like why would you do something so boring? A wolf in a room, that's crazy, right? But like, if you can do anything, your first instinct isn't to do wolf in a room. The direction's just not really there. They have a lot of action sequences that if you had a good director, I think could have worked. They do a lot of like crane shots or helicopter shots above these big crowds running. It just looked like a bunch of ants were running after something. And then anytime they're attacking things or they have an action sequence, it's shot very awkwardly, and he doesn't really get into the kinetic energy of these fights. Their direction was worse than the first Divergent film. That film didn't have a lot of action in it, and the action in it wasn't really that good. And this is somehow worse because it actually had a lot of action in the film, but I found myself being really bored by it. I like a good action sequence, and I didn't see it. It was funny. I had to think about how there was a lot of action in this film. The least exciting action sequences I've seen in a mainstream film. If there had been a director who really kind of gave a shit and was trying at least, but this film reeked of just everyone wanting to go to lunch, so let's get this done real quick. We all want to move on to other projects. And most of the actors in the film felt like they were just there to get a paycheck, like Naomi Watts in this film, who's like the least amount I've seen her try, and she even tried in crap like St. Vincent. So, you know, that's pretty impressive for her, or unimpressive. Kate Winslet playing the bad guy, I actually thought she was better in the first one. Same with Shailene Woodley. The first film had somewhat of a character arc, and in this it's just like trying to just bounce around through a bunch of different things. It made for a faster pace one at least, but the problem with that is you have even less of a connection, and Shailene Woodley's performance really didn't help. The only people who are really good in this, I think Jai Courtney for some reason gives his best performances in these movies. Probably says more about him and him being an actor that he would like try to do a good performance in the Divergent movies, but hey, that's Jai Courtney. Miles Teller, it's almost like he couldn't help himself. It says a lot about him as an actor that he couldn't help his natural charisma come through. It's almost like he showed up on set for the sequel and it was like, yeah, I was in this movie called Whiplash, so I'm like a lot better now. And it just like permeated through the movie. He was the best thing to watch on screen. And there's a lot of good actors in this film who could do that and have done that through other movies, but he's the only one who really succeeded at it. As soon as he started talking, I mean, he was kind of a dick throughout it, and the dickness brought out his charisma, but everyone else, it really just felt like this is their paycheck movie and they're not going to try much harder than that. They're not really going to get into it more than that. You could feel it throughout this movie. Certainly in a lot of big expensive comic book movies and big summer blockbusters, a lot of people just do them because of those reasons. But the thing is, when you can really tell, it just doesn't feel as interesting. I felt like this movie wasn't even storyboarded. It felt very unplanned in a lot of the action sequences. When she was in the Sims, the simulation things, those felt far more planned out, and to a ridiculous degree, everything else just felt really quickly done. It was hard to get into that. The whole film felt very disposable. When you look at films like this and they're just like retreading through the same things over and over again, it does make me wonder about people in this day and age, in this generation, adhering to demographics so tightly that they're not being very adventurous beyond that. And the fact that a studio can make something like this disposable and this cheap and like with such little care to it, but still knowingly adhering to that demo, and that demo kind of rewarding them, kind of scares me as much as that dystopian future you see in these movies does, because it just shows that people are so into the things that appeal to them that they're comfortable in that, and they will keep seeing these kind of things. In the way we view media and how people don't like to break out from their current demos, we're probably going to see more movies like this. We're very lucky that there's certain producers and people who run studios who really care about making movies that do appeal to certain demos who probably show up anyway no matter what. But every now and then you get films like this that kind of make you go like, damn, and this will probably be a hit, and then there's going to be two more, and there's just like nothing to stop it because they're appealing so directly to this demo. The demo's not going to refuse it, and that is scary. They've been allowed to get away with this. And blaxploitation was big. There wasn't 20 Shafts, there wasn't 20 Coffees. No, I know these are the big books, so of course they're going to make them, but the fact that they're pretending to try by improving on certain things versus the first film, like the simulation sequences and trying to have more action in it, but they're not really trying. People will just see the same thing over and over again. And when I see movies like this, that's kind of what I think about. It was like, oh man, we're really just so stuck in these demographics now. The average viewer is interested in less options. Kind of makes me think stuff like this is going to become more of the commonplace. It does very much scare me. These films make the Hunger Games look like Citizen Kane. They're just so blandly directed, so blandly made and written and even acted in. They really kind of bother me in their like not giving a fuckness. So ready to be a big hit that they kind of just didn't care about earning it. And I think Hunger Games aren't a perfect film franchise, but they at least try to earn it. It's almost like they're like, well, we're not even going to try. We're not going to try to get a good screenwriter. We're not going to try to make this into something that's like an actual good movie. It just reeks of the bare minimum effort that Hollywood can offer. That is something that I don't think makes you wonder at the power of Hollywood. It makes you groan about Hollywood more than wonder about it. They're taking the audience for granted, but unfortunately the audience is just taking for granted that films will be like this. So it's just like kind of an endless cycle of terribleness that will never end. I don't think I've seen a blander, less cared about movie this year from a major studio. So if you have seen Insurgent and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.